everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Fix Your Belief Systems, Fix Your BS, where we talk about 5 major pillars: relationships, business or career, health, finances, or belief and faith. And we try to bring you experts in different areas of those 5 pillars. And today we have an amazing individual I saw on Instagram. His name is Mark Jennison, and he has helped over 12,000 guys overcome alcoholism and get their life back. He has his Instagram page is IAMACOMEBACK. IAMACOMEBACK. I have been seeing his stuff pop up, and I became a really big fan really quickly. Love what he's doing, and I've been there too, where alcohol seeps in. You think it's covering something up, and as a high-performing guy that wants to have a great family and wants to have an amazing business and wants to have amazing money, you can't let that thing take over. So thank you for being here, Mark. I really appreciate you, and let's get going, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on here. I think it's pretty rad. I didn't know what Fix Your BS stood for. I didn't know it was belief system. I thought it was what you would think it is. But I think it's interesting because right out of the gate, man, I've helped 12,000 guys. The belief system we have is that you're not weak, you're not diseased, you're not powerless. You always have a choice in everything. Right? So, yeah, man, which way do you want to take this thing?
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your history. You know, you said you've been feeling or fighting this battle as well, or you've been on the other side of it for a long time, and you've helped over 12,000 people, which is just amazing, and impacted millions, which is awesome. And I know a lot of guys that I hang out with, they're covering up a lot of things with alcohol and with other forms of addiction. But, just tell us where you came from and how this all came to be, where it started.
Sure, bro. That'd be a real long story, so we'll just kind of
compress it. Yeah, we'll compress it.
We'll compress it. We don't have that much time. But listen, man, at the height of my drinking career, I drank 50 to 60 drinks a day. My dad owned a bar. My uncle owned a bar. Plus, it was highly successful. I'll go back to that in a minute. But just so the listeners, I should say, understand where I came from. 50 to 60 drinks a day. I snort cocaine all day long. I'll take handfuls of pills or shoot heroin to go to sleep. And I took steroids at the same time, and everything I touched turned to gold. From 27 to 33, I ran a trucking company from the ground up. Knew nothing about transportation, knew nothing about trucking, baptized by fire. My uncle, who was the rock in my life, the man who was like, there for me, he had died, and he had this business that was in shambles. And I decided to walk in the day after he died to make him proud. And I knew nothing, man. At this time, I was still just struggling. I was just a kid, 27 years old, still struggling. I've been struggling with alcohol and drugs since 14 years old. So this is at 27. So I'd already been struggling for 13 years, right? Long story short, we're going to focus on the high performing part because that's what you mentioned. That's who I am, and that's what I am. I was baptized by fire into this world in a business that I didn't know anything about, with one idea, one concept: to make my uncle proud. Was not my belief. I didn't really want to do it. I ended up turning that thing from 27 to 33 years old into 43 semis, 78 employees, multiple warehouses all over Wisconsin. And I also developed even further and further and further a $3,000 a day cocaine drinking problem, right? If you will, problem. So if my results, I shouldn't say results, my history is all I could line up dude after dude, people out here on the street that were like, yeah, man, he was nuts. He was nuts. He was nuts. That's really what I was. So just so people understand how this came to fruition was, man, I tried everything. I went to AA. I went to rehab. I went to NA. I'd done Celebrate Recovery. I prayed. I asked God to take it away night after night. God, please take this away, right? Take this away. And then, 2, 3, 4 hours, I feel better. And I'm right back drinking, lying to myself over and over and over. So I tried all these traditional routes. I'm not here to knock them. I don't believe that drinking was the problem, right? It didn't make sense for me to walk into a room, raise my hand and say, hey, my name is Mark, I'm an alcoholic. When everything I'd done in my life since the time I was a kid, the struggles that I've been through, I kept clawing and scratching and climbing and just building and building and building. And after my final relapse, which is a whole nother story in itself, where I believe God legitimately spoke to me and said, hey, man, he did. He said, are you ready to listen to me now? And I listened audibly and answered it. But after my final relapse and decided that, I lost my son, lost my businesses, lost everything that I worked for. The millions of dollars were gone. I owed the IRS. I owed everybody. Just my life was in shambles. I needed to have a path, right? I knew I needed something. This is where I think it's in alignment with the assignment and the conversation you're having here today, which is like your belief system. I recognized real quick that the belief systems that they were feeding me out there didn't fit with who I am, which was part of the problem of why I kept trying to interject myself into these meetings and do these things, and it didn't make sense. So built it. Now here we sit.
Yeah, dude, man, that is an amazing story, though. There's so many people out there that are doing just that, though. They might not be to that extreme, but they're still doing it. They're covering up something, trying to figure out what's going wrong with their life, even though they may seem successful in a lot of different ways. And I've been there too. I mean, as a guy, you really, and you can speak to this more than I can, but you really don't feel like you have anybody you can talk to. I mean, who do you turn to? Do you turn to your wife? Do you turn to your friend? Do you turn to your dad? Or do you turn to, you start to think about it. You're like, who do you actually talk to? And unless you have a group of other individuals going through something similar, you really don't.
I think there's two sides of that, right? So I lead very, very high profile men. Like my group's completely confidential. I only serve high performers, doctors, lawyers, pilots, business owners, billionaires, just like high level people in the military, like lots of we'll call them winners inside there, right? But if you really look at the problem is never alcohol, right? Alcohol is not the problem. It's just the solution to the problem. And sometimes the solution to the problem is the pressure that we represent or present to ourselves, if you will, right? So getting up every day, I think you're a doctor, right? I believe is what it is. It took I've got tons of doctors in my program, which is great. But it took you a certain amount of like effort to get that MD, to get those initials, to get where you are. And those nights it was lonely, right? Climbing the ladder of success and the schooling and all the stuff that you did. But if you really look at this thing, right? Why I believe that it's not that we don't have anyone to talk to. I believe that people made masculinity for years a point where a man's weak if he actually talks about it. Mm-hmm. So like one of the things that was important to me is that I'm like, I'm just going to blow up the world. I'm just going to speak. This is how I did it. I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to tell everyone everything about me. I'm a junkie. I'm a loser. I lost my kids. I'm a cheater. I'm just going to free myself from all this. Like tell these people everything about me. And then they can't talk bad about me. And once I freed it, I'm like, holy cow, there's some freedom inside there. What I recognized inside there was that not everybody wants to do that. And I was an extreme case. But I believe the problem is that we're taught by our lineage and forefathers that, and then even a long time after that, maybe it's not even them, but society, that we can't talk about it. And that we're weak if we talk about it. And I think the exact opposite. And then you're right. When you start looking at it at that point, like you got nowhere to go, then you look and you can find, just like you said about the Gary Vee algorithm, you can find whatever you're looking for. If you want loneliness, you find loneliness. If you want a group of like, why couldn't you tell your friend if you're struggling? He's probably drinking right alongside you. But there's like this fake wall that people put up, right?
Yeah.
So for me, man, the way that when I help these guys come in, I open up a place where these guys can come in and it's just like, here we are. This is who we are. I believe that the greatest gift, the greatest power we possess, the ability to choose. We were choosing to make poor mistakes. Now we're not making the choices, I should say. Now we're standing up and rising as men in a group collectively and winning all over the place. So yeah, man, it's interesting because for years I thought I was so different. Right?
Like, yeah, you feel alone. You feel alone. There's a lot of things, especially if, like you said, you're making the choice, but there's a lot of times where things happen in people's lives where they feel alone and it wasn't their choice necessarily. Like I have 2 kids. My second child was born with dwarfism. It was a random genetic thing. He was born and they was like, hey, guess what? Your kid's born with dwarfism. 80% of people have never had, 80% of parents who have a dwarfism have no family history of it. So it's like this thing that just happens. Well, then he had a lot of medical complications and there was a lot of loneliness during that because I felt like there was nobody going through what we're going through. Also financially, I've been in very, very tough financial holes and same thing, but it's the belief behind it of, I don't have anyone to talk to. I don't have anyone to turn to, that you find, well, I don't have anyone to turn to. You find the thing that you are saying over and over, when in reality, there's been multiple times where it gets to that point of breakdown and you speak up to somebody, and the thing that you think you're afraid of, the thing that like you believe they're going to have a response, and generally that response is way different than what you think it's going to be. It's more accepting. It's like, oh, okay, well, let's fix it. Do you have a plan?
Right.
Wait, I thought you were going to freak out. What do you mean, do I have a plan? Yeah, I got a plan. Good. Let me help you with the plan.
What are we going to do? Let's tackle this. Get it head on. I bet I'm going to ask you a question. So inside of 80% of you said 80% of the parents have no history of dwarfism.
So yeah, when parents have a kid with dwarfism, 80% of the time there's no family history at all.
And yet you felt alone. Yet 80% of the people are just like you, which means more people are like you than not.
Right. Exactly. Right.
But
you feel like, oh, right. It's all up there.
And it's the same thing. So like what I do, why I help the men in the way that I do and with myself was, and I was an extreme case, man. Like I really had a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, a lot of hatred, a lot of darkness, a lot of sadness, a lot of depression. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way. By no means am I like, is this a comparison game? And my story's worse than everybody else's. But the way that I felt intrinsically was like, dude, the world doesn't love me. I don't love myself. Why am I even living anymore? And it's just a race to the bottom at that point, you know? So,
but you just said something very, very impactful though. And people have to hear that. It's that I don't love myself anymore. And so one of the sayings I have above my squat bench is know thyself. One of the thing I spend the most time on is knowing me internally and knowing my limitations that I believe that are there, the things that I'm great at, the things that I struggle with, so I can figure out what those are so you can attack it head on. But I think that you just said it, know thyself. It's like, I don't know who I am in here, and there's a lot of guilt inside that I am holding, and therefore I look for things externally to validate that guilt or shame or fear or whatever belief about yourself. I mean, do you find the same thing?
100%. So some of the questions, not some of the questions, like the initial questions when somebody enrolls with me, and then we put them through what's called a clarity call, and I give them some homework, like the quick win to help them just realize, there's way more to this than just quitting drinking. But the questions are simple. Who are you? What do you want? And why do you want it? And if you try to really have, even you, like myself, you, other listeners struggling or not, the initial question of who are you is one of the most difficult questions. And I'm talking about like removing the labels, like not who am I as a father, like forget the father, forget the brother, forget the husband, forget the weightlifter, right? The guy on the squat rack, like inside in my soul, at like a soul level, who am I? Like, what does that piece of me want? And for me, what I told you here is like, yeah, bro, I didn't love myself. And it's actually taken me, I'm 43 right now. It was to my 42nd year I've spent over 7 figures on my self-development, right? Like to get to this point, to work through it. I didn't want to be labeled by anything that, no offense, I didn't want doctors to give me pills. I didn't want, right?
Well, luckily, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a chiropractor, actually.
All right, good.
I own a regenerative medicine, integrated regenerative medicine clinic, chiropractic, regen, stem cells, chiro, bracing, rehab, try to get people to where they get their body fixed properly without using med, steroids, or surgery. I won't even get into the stats in our healthcare system in America. We can get on that on another subject.
Yeah. Well, you know more about that than me. I just knew that I didn't want that path for me, right? It took me 42 years of my life to finally recognize not only do I love myself, but I am love. And since this is about shifting your belief patterns and your belief systems, I guarantee you have listeners out here that are looking at this thing like, dang, dude, the amount of struggle. Like I put everybody first, and I literally have struggled to this point. And I built businesses, and I've helped my mom, and I've helped my family, I've helped my friends, I've done all these things, and I don't feel right inside because they're failing to recognize that somebody who can give that much away is full of more than they even know, right? More than they even recognize. 42 years of me thinking I should die. Worthless, right? I've been successful, like even at the height of my drinking career, like everything I've done I'm a winner in everything I do. I'm not just saying that, right? Like my whole life. Yet then winning wasn't enough if I didn't actually love myself. And there was no validation because I couldn't look in the mirror and be like, yo, that dude right there, like this meat suit that I'm wearing, the guy looking back at me, he's all right. And it took a long time to get here.
That's awesome, man. That is such, that is so impactful for people, though, to be able to look in the mirror. And I was there too. I mean, I had to, and I think a lot of guys deal with that, where they don't feel loved, they don't feel valued. They even feel weird saying that, like, well, I don't need that. And you're like, well, yeah, you do. You need to be able to love yourself. Like, how I always say, no one can love you more than you love you. So if a 0 out of 10 scale is the amount of love somebody can give you, and somebody's like, dude, I love you at a 10, and you only love yourself at a 2, you won't believe them. You'll be like, there's no way. It's not possible for you to love me at a 10. I'm not even good enough to be loved at a 10. And so that's the first step for me, was I had to figure that out, because my wife would look at me and be like, dude, I love you. And I'd be like,
yeah, but what about this, right? You start justifying.
Yeah, like, what do you mean? Yeah, what about all these bad things or dumb things or stupid things, or like, what do you?
Here's what I ask the guys, right? If you have to ask yourself, of all the things that you love in your life, like, just say you have a list, right? Your kids, your job, your dog, your car, your boat, your house, whatever, like all these things on the outside you love, where are you at on that list? And I will tell you this, every single time that someone enters into my world, they take a step back, take a deep breath, and they're like, man, I'm not even on that list.
Yeah. What are you talking about? What list? I'm on a different page.
They can't even give themselves a 2 because they didn't even feel like, dude, I'm not worthy. And these are people, guys like me, guys like you, who just do successful things and like big stuff inside of our lives. And all that really comes from a place of fear. I mean, because that's another conversation. Majority of everything that I've built, not majority, everything I've built has come from running from a trailer park and not being good enough, not loving myself to prove somebody wrong instead of proving myself right. Right? That's even where the drinking came from. Everything was the same. It comes down to, for me, not loving myself and hating a lot of people.
Well, and in turn, hating a lot of people comes from hating yourself, really. And I don't want to say hating yourself, but the opposite of loving yourself is hating yourself. I mean, it's just the opposite. It's night and day. It's black and white. It's, and so being able to actually get to a point where you feel that contentment and look at yourself and be like, man, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of the stuff that you've gone through. I'm proud of being someone that's always been there. And you not only deserve it, you deserve love. You deserve someone that is there for you, but you deserve to be there for you. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So if somebody's out there, they're a high performer and they want to learn more about you and want to learn about IAMACOMEBACK, what do they do? How do they find you?
Man, like you said, I'm all over it. I'm all over Facebook, Instagram. I mean, we're everywhere. I think we've got TV commercials coming out and all this stuff right now. But yeah, man, just go to IAMACOMEBACK on either Instagram or Facebook, or Mark Jennison on Facebook. Shoot us a DM. I have a team that probably is who got us set up on this. They read all the DMs, and yeah, man, we have free books and stuff. We give away resources as well if you're not a fit for what we do. So if you know somebody even that's struggling, right? Maybe you're not the one struggling, or you know someone that's struggling. You're a wife of somebody that's struggling. You want to find out what this is, just go to IAMACOMEBACK.com and fill something out. We'll deal with you.
All the links will be in the description. People just can click on those, or they can go to Instagram and they can look at our posts as well, because we also will post your information. But everyone, and I guarantee you this, every single person listening to this knows one person at least that is struggling with some sort of internal battle that they do not believe that they can talk to someone or turn to someone about. 100%, every person should take a notepad and write down a list of some people that come to the top of their head, because I guarantee you that they can come up with some names, and they need to reach out to IAMACOMEBACK. Mark Jennison is who they should reach out to. But man, Mark, really appreciate you being here. I like to ask this one question to everybody, but how would you define success? How would you define success?
So that's an interesting thing, because from the outside looking in, I have what the world would call success of everything. I've worked my ass off to have it, right? But when I look at myself, that's not what my success is based off of. My success now is based off of a feeling. I would define success as the feeling of the opportunity and the privilege, if you will, to get up every day and be good with who you are. Like, legitimately, like, I'm good enough I have what it takes to be successful, whatever that means to you. My family's taken care of. And for today, I'm going to win, not just get by. I'm going to win and maximize. The other way that I would define it is that I have a pick. It's actually one of my best friends died when we were 20, he was 24, I was 25. And it touched my life because he died in a car accident, right before it was Christmas Eve. And I flew home from California. He was back here in Wisconsin, and I flew home to Illinois, but I flew home to be with him. And I remember looking outside the funeral home, and the people would line up 2 or 3 times to see him. So imagine that, feeling enough your whole life and then living a life worth it. At the end, people will go 2, 3 times to see you, to celebrate you, because they just don't want to say goodbye to you. That's what I would say is success.
That's awesome, man. And what a great definition too. That's so good. And it's so funny because I've done this almost, over 50 plus times. And the high successful people have a very similar definition. It comes from inside. It comes from contentment, worthiness, fulfillment, joy, that sort of feeling. They very rarely define it as anything external, which is really cool. So, man, this has been an absolute pleasure. Really appreciate you being here. Any final words that you'd like to say to anybody listening to this episode?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, guys. And like Dr. Greg said, if you need anything, right, reach out to us. But also for every person out there, whether you're struggling with alcohol or not, like success, if we're on that topic, is in your hands. Not only is it in your hands, it's already in your heart. It's in your mind. Believe it and you can achieve it. I know that sounds cliche. We've seen it on movies and on Instagram, but it just is what it is. Everything is possible. So go get it.
Dude, I love it. And I also love that earlier you said something basically along the lines of expect to win. You wake up, you're like, I expect to win today. I expect to have great things happen to me. And that's a really great place to live. Well, Mark, I really appreciate you. Everybody needs to go to IAMACOMEBACK. If you know anyone that is dealing with any alcohol abuse issues, or if you know a guy that just doesn't seem like they know who they can return to, this is a great group to be a part of. I may even become a part of the group and try to help any way I can as well, because I think this is just an amazing movement that you've created. So appreciate you fighting off those demons and going through that. This has been another episode of Fix Your BS, Fix Your Belief Systems with me, Dr. Greg Persley. Thanks, Mark, for being here. Click on the links below. Send them to your friends and your family. Everyone deserves a chance to love themselves, and that's what Mark does with IAMACOMEBACK. Until next time, this has been another episode of Fix Your Belief Systems, where we work on 5 major pillars of life to build the life that you love based on your terms. We will see you on the next episode.